Hi, I'm Lou Ann Worley with Rockin Book Reviews, and I'm here today with Jack Castle. And he is described as a man of adventures by, help me with this.
Oh, that's the Coeur d'Alene Press.
Pardon?
I know it's hard to pronounce. Coeur d'Alene Press.
There, that's the way. I'm not good at French.
One.
You stated you traveled the globe as a stuntsman. That had to be exciting. Share with us some of your experiences.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I started as a stuntman with Universal Studios down in Orlando, Florida. I worked at the Wild West Stunt Show, where every day I had to get shot off of a 3-story building and land on these boards and crash through the boards, and the pad was hidden in the ground. And every day I was amazed I could walk to my car. After Universal Studios, there was a lot of filming done on the Universal Studios back lot. Excuse me. And we got to work with Tom Hanks and Mark Harmon, a lot of stars. That was a lot of fun. But I think where I had the most fun in stunt work was when I would get offered contracts at stunt shows overseas. And that really allowed me to travel all over the globe, which was a lot of fun. I spent years in Europe just doing shows and traveling on my days off. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun.
Was there any other things that you did as a stuntman?
Oh, gosh, well, there was as far as stunts, I would get shot, fall off the building. I would drive a jet ski through an exploding platform. I would do a 150-foot slide for life while shooting a gun in one hand at a boat while they were shooting at me. I've been lit on fire. I've done multiple fights.
Wow.
Yeah. Being a stuntman is a lot of
Just
fun.
Just a big variety.
Well, it's like being a little kid, only you get all these really cool things to play with, you know. So yeah, being a stuntman was a lot of fun. I did it for many years, and I actually get to do a little bit of it now. So
wow. Okay, after you were a stuntman, you moved to Alaska.
No. I didn't move to Alaska. We were in Europe, and the way the story goes is my wife walked up behind me with a heavy object and knocked me out. And then we woke up. I woke up in Alaska, and
now, explain that.
Yeah, well, she's from Alaska, and
did she kidnap you?
She did. She kidnapped me, and I was like, Alaska? What am I going to do here? So they didn't have a lot of filmings in Alaska or stunt shows in Alaska, so I had to find a new job in Alaska, and that's what I did.
So you became a tour guide, and then a police officer?
Yes.
And a professor of criminal justice?
Yes.
And a certified weapons instructor?
Yes.
So which of these did you enjoy the most?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think I enjoyed all of them for different reasons. Being a tour guide was one of my favorites because you got to take people all the way across Alaska and go river rafting and take them on bush planes and land on the highest glacier in North America. You really get to meet a whole bunch of different people from different walks of life, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed being a police officer. I enjoyed making a difference. Anchorage Police Department is a very well respected police agency in the United States, and I enjoyed working with them. Of course, I love being a college professor. That was a lot of fun, meeting students. So yeah, if I could pick one, I don't think I could. I really like all of them.
Kind of like asking me who my favorite author is.
Oh yeah, that would be very tough. Yeah.
Okay. You were stationed at a remote island in the Aleutian Island.
Yes.
As oh dear.
A response
Let me get
commander.
this. As a team commander.
That's correct.
What kind of a team commander?
Well, our job, and this has all been declassified, so for your military folk out there, don't red card me. If you look at my hand here, this is kind of like the state of Alaska. and there was a ground missile defense site in a very remote island in the Aleutians. And as a captain, my job of a response team was, if someone attacks the island or ground missile defense site, my job is to not let that happen. That's the short version.
So were you military as well?
Yes, they gave me the rank of captain in the Air Force because I was overseeing all their security force response teams.
See, that little piece of information was left out.
Yeah, well, you know, it's so much. Hang on, I got a picture.
Okay.
All right, I'm coming. Don't go anywhere. Oh, I got lots of good pictures here. Okay. So this is me with my guys. I don't know how well you guys can see that. And there we go. It's picking up nicely, and you can see me right here with the team. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then as a tour guide, the picture just vanished on me. But as a tour guide, that was a lot of fun. And I had a picture here just a second ago, literally vanished, of me landing on a glacier. I dropped a picture walking over here, and now I don't see it.
Wow. So
sorry about that.
So was that the same time you protected engineers from ravenous polar bears?
No, gosh, you really did your research. I know, right? The picture just vanished. So when I was on the ground missile defense site, that was early in my career. But the last job I had before I left Alaska was working in the Arctic, and my job was to protect engineers from polar bears, which was a lot of fun. We did law enforcement duties. We did first aid, CPR, AD, emergency response type calls. But predominantly, it was keeping people from getting eaten.
So how did you do? You had a story you told me one time about that. Can you?
Oh yes, the polar bear story. Okay, so get this. My very first day on the job, I just arrived in the Arctic, and they said, listen, normally we like to take it easy and let you get your quarters and etc. But we're so short-handed, we need to drive you to post right away. So I said, okay, we just got off the plane. So they drive me to this outpost in the middle of nowhere, and it's just ice roads, right? So there's this tiny little shack that is to keep us warm. And they said, you're going to stop truckers who are smuggling alcohol into dry villages in Alaska. So that's going to be your job today. And I said, okay, because that was a real problem. And they asked us to assist. So I said, okay, no problem. So the guy dropping me off, the officer dropping me off, he says, oh, I forgot my lunch. I need to go back to base and get my lunch. And I said, okay, how long is that going to take? Well, because it's ice roads, it takes about 40 minutes to get anywhere. So he had to do 40 minutes there, 40 minutes back. So I said, all right. And all I had was my sidearm. And I go in the shack, and I said, where's the shotgun? And he said, it's not in there. I said, no, it's not in there. He said, oh, okay, don't worry about it. We haven't seen a polar bear for weeks. You got nothing to worry about. And that was true. I found out later they really hadn't seen a polar bear for weeks. And so he leaves, and I start cleaning out the shack. You know, I wanted to mop it out, because that's what I like to do. You know, keep busy. I like to everything clean and organized. So I'm cleaning it out, and jumping out of the Arctic Ocean is a mama polar bear with one cub, starving. Her skin was hanging off her. Oh, no. And she's about 100 yards away. I can see her clearly down the ice road. She's sniffing the air, and she starts kind of coming my direction. So I click my radio, and I tell them exactly. I said, dispatch, this is what I got going on. So then there's this long pause, and then this captain comes over the radio, and he says, all right, officer, permission to arm up. So arm up means you take your shotgun and you put a slug in there because normally we either use beanbag rounds or firecracker rounds or slug. But because I was so remote, they said, go ahead and arm up. So I was a little bit mad because here I am on my first day. I'm about to be eaten by a polar bear. And I said, arm up with what? There's no shotgun in the shack. So then there was an even bigger silence on the radio. And so they didn't know what to do. So they finally came back and they said, hey, go ahead and hide in the shack until we can get some help. And unfortunately for me, I was on channel 1. So the whole field, the whole oil field was all listening in to see this officer get eaten by a polar bear. So they're all listening in. And I made the mistake of looking at the shack and going, hide in the shack? If I hide in there, I'll be a snack pack. Well, guess what my nickname was for a long time? It was Snack Pack. So the polar bear started coming my way with the mama polar bear. And before anybody writes in to you, I want you to know I would never shoot an animal unless under defense to save human life, which is part of my job. So I drew my sidearm, which is a .40 caliber. Any hunter will tell you a .40 caliber will not stop a charging bear, let alone a polar bear. So the polar bear sees me, gets wind of me, and starts loping in my direction. They lope when they run. So I was determined they were going to find two things. Is one, I was going to shoot every last round out of my Glock into the polar bear, trying to save my life. And because I wanted to go home to my children, and I had a camera, and I was determined. I kept taking pictures the whole time while the bear was coming towards me, because I wanted them to find not only every round was spent, but I took a lot of great pictures of the bear eating me.
You want to make sure people believe it.
Yeah, exactly. So then at the last minute, another patrol officer had been driving nearby, and he couldn't pick up the radio because he was, he had both hands on the wheel, and he was trying to get there so fast. And at the last second, he showed up with lights and siren, just as I was about to squeeze off my first round. And the bear stopped, and then he backed up, and then she went the other way with the cub.
Wow.
So yeah, and then the funny thing is, hang on, I got it right here. I was actually trying to finish my second book, Bedlam Lost, but then I ended up stopping this book, Bedlam Lost, and then I started writing this book, White Death. And it was the inspiration behind White Death, as you can very well imagine.
So a lot of that is factual.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of the investigations and procedures that I put in the book were things that I've either done in law enforcement, or there were so many wonderful stories about this stuff in the Arctic that nobody knew about. And I was amazed how many of these stories were untold, and a lot of them went into the book.
Wow.
And the guy I dedicated the book to was the Alaska State Investigator. So he fact-checked my book.
Which also made the top 100 on Kindle.
That's right. And to my surprise, it wasn't the top 100 in its category. It was the top 100. They sent me this little plaque thingy. It was the top 100 out of all books sold on Amazon.
That's great.
I'm saying this right now to you, and I still don't believe it. I'm saying it, and I'm like,
I think it's amazing. I think it's fantastic.
I am so blessed, and I am very shocked.
Okay, you wrote your first full-length novel in the 11th grade, just for the fun of it.
Yes.
What was it about?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. How did you even know about that? Watch out, authors. She does her homework. So if you got any skeletons, she's going to find it. Let's see. That was 11th grade. The teacher, the 11th grade teacher, started the story. And what you did is the first student in line got the story. And then you would write pages, I think 5 pages, and then you had to pass it to the person behind you, and they had to pick it up and carry it on. Well, when I finally got it, the story was about these kids at a summer camp, and they're having a good time. And then there was a one kid who was like a goth kid who really hated his parents, hated life, hated everybody, everything. He ended up writing that all the parents in the world got killed by these monsters, and the monsters came to the summer camp and killed all the parents. So then, yeah. So then the girl after him, she wrote that she did, you know, there were people out there who actually loved their parents, and they started fighting the monsters. And they did anything they could to fight the monsters, and that they were trying to escape the summer camp filled with monsters. And that's where I come in. So I come in, again, I was not an author. I never thought of myself as an author. I was going to be a Marine. That's all I cared about. So when I got the story, they were in a line going through the woods trying to escape the summer camp. So what I did is I had all the monsters surround them, and they were fighting the monsters off, dying one by one. And all of a sudden, the main girl, the main protagonist of the group, is just about ready to be killed. And all of a sudden, a horn appears in the monster's head, and he falls over dead. And then another horn appears in another monster's head, another horn, and they all die. And they look around, and there's a guy in the tree shooting arrows from the tree. And it turns out his father actually taught him how to shoot, and his father was an airborne ranger and taught him how to shoot at an early age. And he ends up saving them. Monsters ends up knocking him out of the tree and hurting him very badly. You know, and he ends up taking his last arrow and killing the monster, but he gets mortally wounded. And then that was it. You know, I didn't think anything of it. I took my book, my part, and passed it to the person behind me. And the thing that shaped my life, shocked me, is everybody was moved. I think his name was Scout. I named him Scout. Everybody was so moved by this character that they first brought him back to life. You know, he didn't die. They healed his wounds. And every time a new student would write Scout something, the student would come to me and go, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about Scout getting grabbed by the neck and a knife, you know, in the head? Or what do you think about Scout getting thrown off the cliff, you know, with a grenade?" And I said, "Who cares? It's your turn. You know, you do what you want." I didn't think anything of it. So then after it was all done, the teacher, Mrs. Hayes, if you're out there, Mrs. Hayes, thank you. She called me after class and she said, "Hey, have you ever thought about being an author?" And I said, no, I'm going to be a Marine. And she said, well, you really need to think about it. And I did. And I think I took that story just for fun. I wrote a 900-page story.
Wow.
Safely buried in the backyard. Yeah, just for fun.
So that's where the backyard theory came from.
That's one of them. You know, there's a lot of them buried out there that I don't want anybody to see. They're just terrible. But yeah, I think every author has to go through that. I think they have to write a bunch of stinkers, and they have to learn from their mistakes, and then they get their methodology, they get their process, they get their voice, which is probably the most important, and that's part of the process.
Okay, you wrote the Europa journal.
Yes, yay, love that book.
I really liked it. This is a sci-fi with a Bermuda Triangle mystery all bound up in it, and
Yes.
it's pretty good. And
Thank you.
but I noticed that from the time you wrote it in 1998,
Yes.
the final draft was 2004. Why so
98.
long?
Oh gosh, you really do your research. 1998, we were on a plane to Austria, and we just always wanted to visit Austria, and we didn't, for whatever reason, we didn't have anything to play with. You know, we didn't have the TV monitors in the seats. We didn't have the laptop. We had nothing. So to amuse ourselves, I actually started writing this story, Europa Journal, which, as you know, begins with the pilots who vanished in the Bermuda Triangle, those bomber pilots.
Were you afraid you'd vanish? on the
Well,
plane.
yeah, I guess, I guess we thought about it. You're on a plane over the ocean, from Florida. We were passing through the Bermuda. Well, we didn't really go through the Bermuda Triangle, but sure. And so I started the story about the bomber pilots vanishing in the Bermuda Triangle. And of course, we end up on the ice moon of Europa, and they find the corpse of one of the pilots holding this journal, this book. And then the astronauts open the book and they see how these pilots were transported to a place with no recognizable stars. And as the walls shake down around the astronauts, they turn the page and they see that their names are actually written in the journal, in the Europa Journal. So my wife loved this story idea. She loved the concept. But the reason why it took so long is I was traveling the world. And I would find new cultures and I would meet new people, and they always found their way into the book. And that's why the story is very eclectic, from the Owampe, who you meet, this caravan of Owampe, to the bomber pilots themselves. It was because I was traveling the world. So 1998, the last draft was written in 2004.
Wow.
Yeah, that took quite a while.
Okay, and each one of these are written as a standalone and very unique, very different from one another. Are you looking at writing a series soon?
Yes, I know you know the answer. I know you know. She's acting like she doesn't know. She knows. We talked about this before. I swore up and down I'd never write a series because I love standalone stories. I've always liked Michael Crichton for that reason. I love that he has done a couple sequels that he was forced to do, but I love standalone stories. But I wrote this story for my daughter about 3 years ago. She was bedridden for about 9 days. And it was based off of some notes I had put together in the tunnels underneath Walt Disney World. So I took those notes and I turned those into chapters. And what I would do is I would write a chapter a day, about 5 pages, and I would write a chapter a day. And then that night I would read a chapter to my daughter. And what's really fun is the character in the book, Maddie, is actually 9 years old also. So as she would make little comments, she would say, "Dad, I wouldn't say that. That's a bad word." I would write that down in the notes. And again, it never occurred to me that this was going to be a published book. So we started doing a chapter, and this went on for 9 days. And for 3 years, I've been working on this book. And when I finally sat down and did the outline, I realized this thing is massive. I mean, if I were to write a book, this would be easily 900 pages, and that's just too big. So then I started thinking, okay, let's talk trilogy. Let's think about a trilogy. That would be a nice 3 books. That would be a lot of fun. And then I realized, oh my goodness, there's no way we can tell this story in 3 books. So believe it or not, the overall story arc is 12 to 13 books.
Wow.
I'm as shocked as you are. I've already finished the first book. It's with a 17-year veteran editor who's worked at major publishing houses. She's going over the second edit. The beta readers can't get enough of it. And it releases in December.
Wow.
Yes.
That is so exciting.
Crazy.
Is that going to occupy then your time for the next few years?
I think so. One of the things that might kind of infringe on that time is this one. I think if there's the most request for a sequel, it's the White Death. More people want to see a sequel to White Death than any other book. And I do have a sequel mapped out. It's pretty crazy. I was talking to a beta reader about it, and he said, well, what's it about? What's the sequel about? And I just kind of ran it through, and he was just, you need to write this book. So I might write a sequel to White Death. And The Revenant is also supposed to have a sequel too. But, This new series, yeah, it's really going to take up a lot of my time.
And that's a type of book that we don't hear, read very often. We don't receive very often. So I think there's certain ones I like. It used to be dragons were all over, and now you hardly find a book on dragons. So.
Oh, really? Yeah. Michael Crichton just released a book, Dragon Teeth, but I think
Yeah,
it's
there's
more
a
about about unearthing dinosaur bones.
But it just seems like they go in sprees, right now it seems like everything is sci-fis and mystery.
Yes.
Which I like, but it's nice to have the variety. Is there any final words you'd like to say?
Gosh, thank you everybody for your support. Luann, thank you so much for having me. We have, I was saving some just for you and your fans, your followers. The Revenants is my newest book. And if anybody wants an autographed copy sent to them, just reach out to me on Facebook or jackcastlebooks@aol.com. I charge the same price as Amazon, but you get a personalized autographed copy. We don't have these while supplies last, just so you know.
That is fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
And additionally, you have the other giveaway, and I'm using it for my grand finale.
Yay! Right. So we have more books to give away?
10 ebooks and 3 of each book to the...
So
Brian told me.
Oh, for those of you who don't know, Brian's my publisher.
Anyway, we are so appreciative of your generosity.
It is my
it is so exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And bye-bye.